seconds. There you go.
Well, welcome to the Grant Road Phase 5 and 6 virtual meeting. This is the last of the open houses for the Grant Road 30% plan review. The first two being in person, this is a virtual. So at this time, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Bob Rogentine. I work for the City of Tucson, and I'm the project manager for Grant Road 5, 6, and 3, 4. Later, Alejandro Angel is our project manager. He works for Somas, and he's in charge of design. We have a few housekeeping items before we move forward. And if you're calling in, we ask you that you stay muted the entire meeting. You will not be able to ask questions over the phone, but you can text your questions to, here's the telephone number. It's area code 520-338-8515. And that's for texting your questions, and then we'll be able to answer those. For those joining virtually, you can ask questions in the chat box to the right, and we will have a question and answer session after the presentation. You can visit the project website for any resources on Grant Road, and that's located at
hello to everybody.
That's located at grantroad.info. This video is being recorded and will be posted for later review or for those who were not able to participate tonight. And again, I'd like to thank you all for joining. And Alejandro Angel with Somas, he will be taking over the presentation at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Do we want to allow a couple more minutes to see if more people call in, or would you like me to start now?
I think you're good to begin.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us and spending your evening with us. The presentation today is about Grant Road Phases 5 and 6, which goes from from Park Avenue to Palo Verde Road. My name is Alejandro Angel. I'm the project manager for the design. As Bob mentioned, I work with Selmas, and I've been involved in Grant Road previously. I was the design manager for Grant Road Phase 2. So here's what we want to do with the presentation today. I know a lot of you have been around Grant Road for years as well, but some of you haven't, so we'll provide a little bit of information and background on the project. Then we'll let you know where we are today. We'll go over some revisions that we're proposing to this segment of the corridor, and we'll explain why we're proposing those revisions. And then, as Bob mentioned, we'll go through Q&A. And again, if you are joining via Teams, you can ask those questions on the chat box on the right. If you're over the phone, Bob provided a phone number for people to call in. So there's several of us here from different areas, and we're here just to try to answer your questions as well as we can. So again, for those that might not have been around for a long time, this is a project from the RTA that was passed in 2006, and it extends the overall Grant Road corridor, extend from Oracle to Swan. There was a design concept report done 10 to 12 years ago that created the overall plan for the corridor. That was actually part of a huge public involvement effort. There were, I believe, hundreds of meetings with neighborhood associations, stakeholders, business owners. And also since then, there's been a citizens task force appointed by mayor and council to guide the design team. That task force still convenes today, 13 years later, to work on the project. So I would like to give them a quick shout out for their help on the project. So phases 5 and 6, you can see on the screen here on the photo on the right shows the project limits. It's a little bit over 2 miles, and it has a lot of the same elements as the rest of the corridor. The 6 travel lanes for commuters, but it also includes a lot of the multimodal improvements that this area needs, including sidewalks, bike lanes, bus pullouts. We are being very active in landscaping and water harvesting in this space and in previous phases of Grant Road. And the other thing that sets Grant Road apart is the use of the indirect left turn design at major intersections. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So this specific segment, which will be the last one, phase 1 and phases 1 and 2 already built. Phases 3 and 4 are at 100% design and should go to construction the next year or so. Phases 5 and 6 just started design in 2020. We have been working to review what was prepared 12 years ago and are working on 30% plans. We are almost there, but before we get there, we wanted to get your input and everybody's input. And in fact, as we've been to the in-person open houses over the last couple of weeks, we've already made a couple of tweaks to what we were proposing to make sure we fit the context and what the corridor needs. So feedback is always appreciated. So 30% plans will come this summer, and from there we'll continue in the design. Later in the design, we'll have things like more detailed landscape plans. We will do a noise study to see where and under what circumstances noise walls are warranted. So stay tuned. We will be back to the public when we get there. Design completion right now, we expect it will be in 2023. I would say probably towards the second half of that year. Beyond that, we still don't know the exact schedule because funding for construction and acquisition of property hasn't been designated yet. So again, that's another thing where maybe the next time we meet, we will have more information about those stages. So our current focus as we start this project is to look at what was done in the design concept report, that's DCR, and see if that's still appropriate for the corridor. In the last 10 to 12 years in Tucson, a lot has changed. So we want to evaluate that. For example, since then, the city has developed a bike boulevard master plan. And so that's informed a lot of where we need those bicycle crossings of Grant Road. The city has also passed the complete streets policy, and it's working on complete streets guidelines. So that's actually one of the changes we're looking at, is to better align the bike and pedestrian crossing with those facilities. We're planning to provide 11 protected crossings where people can push a button to cross, whether that's a traditional intersection or a hawk signal or one of those types of protected crossings. The other thing we've looked at is whether we need indirect left turns at Country Club. And I have a slide later where we explain the details of that, but we're not sure that those are appropriate at this point. And then the other thing we looked at is the land acquisition that was projected for this project was very significant. So we're seeing if all of those are necessary. And obviously part of that is, we have budget constraints, but really it's also important for us to reduce impacts to home and businesses. Creating a corridor without businesses and without residents is not a vibrant corridor. So you see here, we want to reduce impacts. We want to support economic vitality along Grant Road. And there's also opportunities where we could take a little bit more property without really impacting an owner. We're trying to do that to make functionality better, whether it's for access, for drainage, or for other things. And I'll explain what I mean in a couple of slides with an example. So let's see, to get started with the proposed revisions, I'm going to follow a format where I have a roll plot of the project. And we're starting at the west end. Here at the west end is Santa Rita Avenue. That's where phase 2 ended. And then we'll make our way to the east. As you look at this, you'll see that we have bus stops shown in here. We have pedestrian crossings. This one, for instance, here is a hawk. This one is also a traffic signal. The orange is the median. for the road, and then the yellow would be the sidewalks. So that'll be common to all the slides I'm going to present in a minute. So started looking just to highlight the key revisions. The first one is at Mountain Avenue, and the design concept report from '09 added left turn lanes from Mountain onto Grant, and that had two challenges. One is it requires widening Mountain for a couple of blocks north and south, and Mountain is a really well-established corridor with mature vegetation, custom street lighting, nice pavers for the bikes. So we thought that was unnecessary. And then we know that if we add improvements to Mountain, we're going to attract more traffic on it. And that really, we don't need Mountain to carry the bulk of the traffic north-south. That's what we have Campbell, First Avenue, and other roads. So with that in mind, we're proposing that we don't add those north-south left turn lanes. We ran the traffic analysis to see if that would be an issue, and we're confident that that intersection will operate great without those turn lanes, and that it'll preserve Mountain as a bicycle corridor like it is today. As we move east, you will see the alignment for Grant Road that Mayor and Council approved back in '09 at Grant Road on this, shifting to the south, west of Mountain Avenue. You can see it right here. And those of you, by the way, those of you that don't have a computer in front of you and are just calling in, a similar presentation to this is already on the website for Grant Road. And this presentation will be posted, so you'll be able to see what I mean later. And feel free to send us questions at that time. But west of Mountain, the roadway was moving to the south and acquiring properties to the south. East of Mountain Avenue, the corridor moves to the north and acquires those properties on the north side. There is this area between Mountain and Highland that's sort of a transition. And I blew up that here on the top right because if we had used the 2009 DCR, you can see the green line here that I'm trying to point to. That's where the acquisition was proposed to be, and that would have meant acquiring that house because the property for the road would have gone through the edge of the house. The same thing in the southeast corner. You can see the green line that would have required purchasing the house, and right now it's a historic structure. So what we looked at is we are narrowing the median through here. We're keeping the same bike lanes, the same sidewalk widths, and in fact, the roadway is not getting any closer to those houses than it is today, to either one of those. But by narrowing the median, we can avoid impacting both of those homes. So that's an example of one location where we're trying to avoid relocation to residents. As we keep moving east, we get to Campbell Avenue. This is Campbell here in the middle of the slide. Campbell is the busiest intersection of this corridor, over 70,000 cars a day. We believe that at this intersection, it is important to continue to provide the indirect left turns as planned. So if you're not familiar with the indirect lefts, you can't turn left directly at the intersection. You have to go through and then make a U-turn and a right turn to make your move. So this is staying the way it was planned, broad terms. But we are adjusting things to try to get a couple of benefits. One, if we focus on the northwest corner of the intersection, this is called Grant Campbell Park. Some people call it Triangle Park. There's a thin green line that you see here. That's the property that the corridor would have acquired based on the original design. What we are acquiring now is the blue line. And I know that looks fairly close, but that's about 8 or 10 feet less park that would be lost in Grant Road. We are also relocating the bus stop and other elements and proposing that we close the alley here. So that gives us the opportunity to consolidate Triangle Park with this other landscape area that will create a much bigger street. The other improvement is on the east side of Campbell Avenue is near Norris. At Norris, there's a lot of water that comes from the south, crosses Grant Road. we have identified enough. We will have the property. We are going to use that entire area. That will help attenuate, mitigate the flooding downstream. But will also provide a simpler, but smaller than done phase 2. Bigger top. So that's also.
Hey, Alejandro, you're cutting out just a bit. Maybe let's try and turn your video off, and we can just go full screen with your presentation.
Okay. Do you need me to go back?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay. Did the discussion about Triangle Park come out okay?
No, let's start from there.
Okay. So on the west side of the intersection, there's a park that people refer to as Triangle Park or Grand Campbell Park. We are reducing the amount of property from the park that would be needed. The original design would have taken to this green line that I'm pointing to. The new design would go to the blue line. And again, that doesn't look like a big difference, but it's about 8 to 10 feet less of park space that would be lost. And then we're also looking at closing the alley over here. And by closing the alley, we are able to consolidate Triangle Park with the other green space at the corner of the intersection. And so that creates an overall bigger landscaped area and open space at the intersection. The other area I wanted to highlight here is Norris Avenue. At Norris, there's significant drainage that crosses Grant Road from south to north. For the project, we are going to have to purchase the properties on the north side of Grant Road here between Norris and Olson. So what we're proposing is that since we have to do that anyway, we will create a small detention basin here. So as the water gets across Grant Road, we will attenuate those really peak high discharges that come out during the rain here, and that will mitigate flooding downstream. It'll also give us an opportunity to create a green space in that area. The picture you see on the top right here that I'm pointing to is from phase 2. So it would be similar with fairly significant landscaping, just smaller. Is that better, Erica?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Moving on to the next segment, which covers the Catalina Vista neighborhood. And you can see it here on the left side of the screen. Catalina Vista right now has a frontage road. It has some vegetation on it, but a lot of it is not in great shape. There's also a curb separating it from Grant Road, but it's not very tall, so it needs some work. That we're not changing what the DCR was doing. We're not getting the roadway any closer to the homes. It actually, if anything, is moving a couple of feet away. What we will do is we will add for landscaping and new curbing and new sidewalk in that area, the frontage road, by better buffering the home. As we move past the residential area and closer to Tucson Boulevard, there has been a few new businesses that have come in, especially east of the intersection. You can see the picture here on the right or on the top. There's a culinary dropout, and here's a couple of the other new buildings. All those two buildings are set back far enough to the road not to impact. Those are in the right place. We do have a challenge in that once we get past Tucson Boulevard, the older businesses are very close to where the road is. And if we just carried the typical white section, we would affect a lot of the business. So as we get past that, we try to get creative. And here's another example that I wanted to show. So this is after Tucson Boulevard, there's streets, and then at the end of this slide, so for reference, this here would be Kingfish. But I wanted to talk about Street Avenue, right? Design is shown on this picture that says 2009 DCR. that design had a really wide intersection that would have required, the blue line is as far as Grant Road to have taken property. It would have required purchasing and demolishing the vehicle cavern, the thrift store, the fire foundation.
Alejandro,
Yes.
you're trying to cut out a little bit more.
Oh boy. I don't know what to do because I'm in the office and that's supposed to have a great connection.
There you go. As you got closer, you sounded better.
Yeah, I think you need to move closer to the microphone, Alejandro.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and yeah, please tell me because yeah, I'd rather make sure everybody can hear it. So here I wanted to focus on Treat Avenue. Treat Avenue in the original design, which is the one that says 2009, was very wide, a very wide intersection that would have required purchasing the Bay Horse Tavern, the southeast corner here, the building where the Tucson Fire Foundation thrift store is, and basically every corner here at Treat. Since then, we've looked at it, and you can see we redesigned the intersection to still be a bike park for the bike boulevard, but it takes significantly less space. Instead of acquiring to where the green line is shown here, we are only going to where the blue line is, and that allows us to preserve the Bay Horse Tavern, for instance. We might have to move the little trailer in front, but the building and the parking would be preserved, which is important because that building has been there over 60 years. Same on the northeast corner, we can preserve that. More challenging on the, I'd say the northwest, but especially the southwest corner would be hard. But we did that by narrowing the median also slightly here. The next important area to look at is near Country Club. And this is where I mentioned we are looking as to whether indirect lefts are necessary or not. The 2009 design, which is what you see on the top photo, shows what you would have to do. If you're going to this shopping center or if you're going to the school, you would have to go through Country Club, come through, make a U-turn, and then go into the school or go into the shopping plaza, which is traditional of indirect lefts, but it also meant that the Boys and Girls Club would have lost their parking area. Their road would have gotten really close to the school building and would have created some conflicts with their bus drop-off. So with that in mind, if an indirect left turn is necessary, we would do it, but we wanted to see if it truly was necessary before we created those hardships. And looking at it, at the bottom, this is what the design would look like, bottom photo, without the indirect left. We would be able to preserve the park, Boys and Girls Club. We would have a better drop-off area at the school, and we would be able to provide, left turn access, still a pedestrian crossing at the Boys and Girls Club, and for people, kids going to Doolin. So there are some benefits. So the next question is, do we need the indirect lefts or not? And we looked at historic and future traffic and sort of the regional patterns out here. So starting with the picture on the right, you can see these are the indirect left turns on Grant. So this is Campbell Avenue, and you can see it's a major regional road. Alvernon turns into River, and it's another major regional road. First Avenue, Oracle Road, those are all huge roads. You look at Country Club, and it's not really the same type of road. It carries less traffic, and part of it is because it's more of a connector or collector, whatever you want to call it. It only goes down to the Country Club, not intended as traffic. Then we look at what's happening with traffic volume at that particular intersection.
Alejandro,
Yes?
just get a little closer, please.
I'm as close as I can.
I know, I'm sorry, it's cutting out a little bit.
Okay, no problem. So Country Club is not a major regional roadway like the other roads. And secondly, we looked at volumes in the area. And even though the traffic volume on Grant Road overall has been growing, the traffic volumes at the Country Club intersection hasn't grown. In 2006, the intersection carried 58,000 cars every day. In 2019, it carried 52. And that's significantly less than what the 2006 traffic study projected for today. The middle number is what the original traffic study projected. And that traffic study was done during the housing 0506. So we looked at what can be developed on Country Club. We know there's apartments going in at the monastery and other things, but by and large, Country Club is built out. So we ran traffic projections, traffic simulations, and we ended up we're confident that the intersection can operate efficiently without the indirect. So based on that, we are recommending that the intersection remain as a traditional, that it be a traditional intersection, like we're showing at the bottom. There's one more item I wanted to address because it has come up a lot, which is landscape. So our landscaping approach in this project is different in the residential and business area. The residential areas, as I mentioned earlier, the alignment grant is fairly well set, and it means that we would impact one side of the road or the other. And because of that, we have flexibility to have wide medians will be landscaped. We can landscape the separation between the frontage roads and Grant Road. We can provide water harvesting adjacent to the properties. And we even, because we're buying the entire properties, for instance, here on the north side, we are actually keeping a little bit more part of Grant Road right of way so that we can provide more intensive landscape. So the residential area of Grant Road will have landscape, the traditional segment, the other segment of Grant Road. I also mentioned the opportunities at Triangle Park here and at Norris, Basins. So in short, the landscaping on this section of Grant would be more intensive than in other previous phases. On the flip side, as we get to the business areas, I mentioned that the alignment sort of splits both sides, and if we just go full width on all the features, we would end up basically buying out the bulk of the businesses. I think hurting Grant Road significantly. So we try to avoid reducing the pedestrian and bike features, so the sidewalks are still the same with bike lanes, but we did narrow the median. What that means is that we have more limited opportunities for landscaping unless we take the trade-off of acquiring a lot of business. So that's not to say that we are not going to landscape. We do have, you can see some opportunities to read here. We are also looking at providing more hardscape where we can. It can be texture sidewalk, color sidewalk, street furniture at the bus stop, things like that. I would also note that at the open houses we did in person the last couple of weeks, and also when we did phase 2, we did hear from several business owners told us they don't want very dense landscaping in front of their businesses for visibility purposes. They do like small shrubs. They like hardscape elements and things like that. And lastly, as some of these area redeveloped, the new businesses will have to meet City of Tucson landscaping requirements, so there will be additional landscaping coming later. So the overall approach here is that we are going to make the same investment landscaping in this phase as we have in our doing other phases, but it will be heavily weighted towards the residential areas, besides the road, and a little bit less on the commercial. We are doing extensive water harvesting as we are doing other phases. And that brings me to the end. I can thank you for putting up with me and my microphone. You can see here, if you do have any comments, This is the address where you can either click on it or type it later and provide us feedback. We have collected a number of feedback forms for public meetings in person, and we'd love to get your input as well. And if you want to know more about the project, you can go and see any of these other locations, the website, email us, or give us a call. So with that, again, I'll end the presentation. I'll turn my camera on, and I assume we will head into the Q&A portion of the meeting. Thank you. Let me see if there are any questions already in the chat. Oh, okay. So I'll start reading the questions. The first question is from someone saying, I was late getting connected. How can I view the first stage beginning with Santa Rita again? So you can go to grantroad.info as shown here. There's a very similar presentation. I mean, the same slides, just whatever came out when I presented it that time. And you can see the information for Santa Rita and the whole corridor. We will also be posting exhibits showing the conceptual design for Grant 5 and 6 over the next couple of days. So that will be on the website. The next question I see is, it says, thank you for the information. There will be access to Samuel's neighborhood from east and westbound Grant Road via Cherry Road. There is already a high traffic volume from South Point High School using Cherry Avenue. This plan could likely increase traffic on the small street. Police were recently in the neighborhood responding to complaints of speeding from the school to Grant via Cherry. Additionally, this intersection is the geographical high point between Campbell and Mountain and currently acts as a natural bike pedestrian crossing, witnessed every day. Is it feasible to switch the bike pedestrian crossing to the Cherry intersection and move the vehicle access to the Vine intersection? So I'm not going to try to give a definitive answer today because I think there's a lot of things that we would need to consider. But that's something that is not that we're going to look at. I will say, and here's an exhibit. This is what we'll be posting on the website. If you look at it, we have a pedestrian crossing here near Warren already, and then the other one at Vine. So if we switched it to Cherry, there would be a block apart with then a bigger gap on the other end. That's a consideration. The other consideration for the median opening is to also sort of space out the access. I will say that part of the intent of these projects is that as we add capacity to Grant Road, the intersection at Campbell will function much better. So that the intent is for us to reduce some of the cut-through traffic in the neighborhoods, because I mean the main reason people cut through neighborhoods is because it's faster than the main route. And so our intent is to make the arterial road more efficient to avoid that. Bob or Robin, anything you want to add?
Well, I think one of the suggestions that we had on the comment cards was to put some traffic calming devices at the opening of the streets, and so maybe we need to consider that to discourage the cut through traffic. Right.
I will say that the type of median we are showing would prevent lefts out from people cutting through. So when you come out of the local street, you'd have to make a right turn. So again, I don't think we can give it a definitive answer, but we have certainly noted the comment and we'll look into it. The next question was, will Norris be accessible from Grant Road? The answer is yes. You will be able to make right turns from Grant onto Norris and from Norris onto Grant. Left turns out of Norris will not be feasible. So you would, like with most indirect lefts, you would go to your next opportunity. So if you're coming from the south, you'd make a right and then make the U-turn at the intersection. There was a question, the next question asks to please repeat the discussion on Treat Avenue. I'm not sure exactly which portion, and it's fairly lengthy, so I will cover the main items, and the rest, again, will be posted online. At Treat Avenue, we are going to provide a what's called a bike hog signal to allow bikes and pedestrians to use the bicycle boulevard. But we reconfigured it from a signal that had a bigger footprint to avoid impacts. This, as originally designed, this green line was the original design and what it would have taken in terms of property. It would have taken that store on the northeast corner. It would have taken the Bay Horse on this side as well. Oops, I can't. And several other properties. So the blue line shows where the proposed right-of-way will be now. We are doing that by narrowing the median, although we still have more than 6 feet in the center for refuge. But that was the one feature that we narrowed to be able to save those buildings. Let me drink a little water. Next question I see is, what are the yellow lines? And I'm assuming that's regarding the yellow lines that I'm showing here, which were the same that we had on the presentation. So if you go to the presentation, they were the same yellow lines. Those are the sidewalks. So, again, the orange is the medians, the yellow lines are the sidewalks. So that shows where the sidewalk would go for the corridor. Hope that helps. The next question, if the traffic projections were off by 20,000 vehicles for Country Club, how can we be sure your projections for Grant Road won't be that far off? Well, we don't know for sure, but we have done our due diligence to make sure that we are, accounting for things appropriately. We've looked not just at how traffic is growing regionally, but what is available in that area around Country Club. I mean, the land uses are pretty much developed. There are, it's impossible to predict exactly what's going to happen because, you have things like autonomous vehicles. You have the shift to online shopping, but at the same time, you have hundreds of Amazon vans running through town every day. So things are different, but we did a sensitivity analysis. So we ran what we think would be the growth rate, and then we ran a higher growth scenario to see if it would still operate appropriately, and it would with the traditional intersection. So we are confident that it would operate well. The next question is about, has consideration been given to using the southwest corner of Treat and Grant as a detention basin? We have had a couple of discussions about that. What I can say about that corner, which is, it's this building right here. I think today is a dispensary. We know that we need to acquire a portion of the building. Even though we're reducing the footprint of Grant Road, the blue line is what we need for the project, and I just highlighted it yellow. That still cuts through the building, so the building, we will offer to purchase the building from the owner. Any property, the owner has an option to sell us just we would have to pay them for the building, and they have an option to retain a portion of their property that we don't need if they want to. Normally that's not economically feasible, but it's their choice. If they decide not to keep a portion of the portion of the property that we don't need, then we can either look at it as a detention basin or as a parking area or park or remnant to resale, any of those other uses. So street does carry a lot of drainage, and that's something we would consider as well. I know that corner is a hot topic for city council and a lot of people. So given the amount of traffic that's brought to the area. So I don't know, is there anything else that anybody wants to add, Bob or Robin, or did I?
No, I think it's too early to really give any information for that particular parcel.
Yeah, I guess the best we can say is there's no way we can completely avoid that property with the project. So we are planning on an acquisition.
I guess the only thing I would add is as we move forward in design, we'll take what opportunities we can where we have additional property.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Robin. The next question is, more space should be set aside in the business area section of grant phases 5 and 6 to make room for green space and water harvesting landscaping. Our neighborhood is adjacent to this area, and the disparity between the design section is not equitable for the neighborhoods along this area. So that's a great comment. It's not a question, it's a comment. I will say that we are trying to do everything to make it as nice as possible in that area. We do have a constraint, which is more which is more tolerable? Is it, to reduce the landscaping and compensate in other ways, or is it, acquiring businesses and properties adjacent to the whole corridor? So at this point, we're proposing that we look at other ways to mitigate the loss of some of the landscaping. And again, I wouldn't say that there is no landscaping in this section, but there is less. There would be less. These are some of the things we can do. You can see this is on grant phase 1. In a business area, and what we have here is we have color sidewalk, we have some trees in the sidewalk with tree wells, we have a bench. Let's see, I was looking phase 2 also. I got a couple of pictures. This picture is also phase 1. This is phase 2. So we are, again, trying to provide other ways to improve the environment, the look and feel of the area. Next question is a good one. Again, what is planned for the old Bookman's and its parking lot? So that is referring to the southeast corner of Grant and Campbell. So let me go to that area. And hopefully this is to, I know zooming in and out sometimes gets me dizzy, but here's Campbell and Grant. So the question is in regards to this property right here, where Bookman's used to be. And we don't know for sure. It's privately owned. At one point it was owned by Banner. I believe somebody else owns it right now. I know I don't know who the owner is, but I did hear recently that they were considering development plans, and someone asked me what would be a good point for access off of Grant Road. So we did share our plans, so they would know that a driveway that's not in conflict with the bus pullout would be best. So not sure what the use would be yet, but I know they are looking into redeveloping it. If anybody, Bob or Robin, do you have any info on what they proposed? I don't think they filed a development plan yet, so I don't know that we know.
I don't know.
We've been talking to a California design firm, and they have like a bank, drive-up bank, and a coffee shop, and some other. It was like 3 buildings that they were proposing, but I don't think it was financially viable for them at the present time. Keep in mind that on your picture there, that's the remnant that would be left over after Grant Road moves to the south.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah, there's a portion of the property that's already been sort of anticipated to be part of Grant Road right here. So that area. So thank you, Bob. There is a question about right turn lanes. What about right turn lanes? So we do look at right turn lanes to provide those in places that have high volumes, high demand. And we are doing that here. So for instance, at Campbell Avenue, we are providing right turn lanes in all directions. See, I don't remember them all by heart, but it looks like we have right turn lanes planned at Mountain from Grant, but not from Mountain. At Country Club, I know we have right turn lanes in all directions as well. I know this is hard to see, but there are right turn lanes in all directions there at Country Club. And if I go to Tucson Boulevard, there's right turn lanes in northbound, southbound, and westbound. So most of the major movements have right turn lanes. Take another sip of water. Next question, and Bob, I might pass part of this to you. What public art will be installed with phases 3, 4, 5, and 6? So do you want to take this one?
Sure. So we have we have selected a panel for the public art for phase 3 and 4. And we have not selected a panel for the public art for 5 and 6. 5 and 6 will be a little bit down the road once we establish when construction will be coming along. And we'll have to find a place for that public art on 5 and 6. Grant Road 3 and 4, the panel is in the middle of trying to select the art and the location. And I think 3 and 4 we're kind of zeroing in on Dodge and Grant, and we're gonna have a detention pond there. And we have 3 ideas that were presented by the artist Joe O'Connell that the panel selected. And some are one's kind of modern, the other one's historical, and one is of an animal. All of them are, and pretty much all of them are into the environmental, spotlighting the environmental friendly perspective of the road. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at.
Bob, so yeah, so to recap, Grant 3 and 4, the artist has been selected. It's Joe O'Connell, and the art's going to go near Dodge, right?
That's where
there's various teams still. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the panel is selected, but I think they haven't finalized though.
Okay. And again, for 5 and 6 is too early. The artist usually gets selected, and the panel that selects the artist is a group of citizens, representatives, city representatives, and others. When they select the artist, it's probably at the 60 or 90% design stage. And then we work with the artist to make sure that we find a spot where their art fits. The artist does have a say on where the art goes because it's their art and they see where it makes a good statement. This was the art for Grant Phase 2, which I think a lot of people like. I would say on Grant 5 and 6, we do have a few opportunities. Whether it's Grant and Campbell Park, whether it's the new basin at Norris or any of the other areas along Grant, there's several high visibility areas that I think they might like. They generally don't like to be close to utilities or other things that obstruct their art or the visibility. So.
Will the public, I'm sorry, this is Robin. Will the public get some input into the artist conceptions for Grant 3-4, Bob?
The way, yeah, the way the statute's laid out is the panel selects the art, and the panels. We have a very large panel, and all of the members on the panel actually live in the neighborhood. So we have a number of people that are on the HOAs. They're sharing the information with their homeowners association. So I think it's more of a local decision is what it's meant to be.
Right, I understand that. If anybody here would like to see any of those artist conceptions, is there a way for them to do so? I know you're going to be presenting those for the task force, correct?
I don't think we've made that decision where we were trying to come. So they're supposed to make a decision before the end of the month, what art that they want to see go onto the project. And once that's selected, then we'll share it.
Right. So people will have an opportunity to look at what's been shared, what's been selected,
Yes.
and some input. I think it's always important to be able to see it before it goes in, maybe make some tweaks, suggestions.
And I think the artist, wasn't he at the first public meeting? Or at least the Arts Foundation was at the first public meeting we had a week ago on Saturday. Is that correct, Bob?
Yes, he was. Joe O'Connell was there with the Arts Foundation, and they were well accepted. And he had some of his art on a model basis that he was sharing with it. Now, it wouldn't be exactly that, but it was the type of art that he works with. And that was why he was selected, was the type of art.
Sure. And I would say people interested in the art, maybe reach out to Bob, and Bob can reach out to the Arts Council and see if some of those things that were at the public open house that was in person could also be shared with anybody who's interested.
Yep.
You bet.
Next question. And Robin, I might ask for your help on this. What is the city's plan to prevent these landscape medians from looking like the basins along Glen that have buffalo grass and minimal plantings? So I can speak as far as the plantings because, again, as we've done on phases 1 and 2, these will have fairly heavy plantings. They do start small, but they grow over time. So this is some of the landscaping on the other phases. So plantings will be incorporated. As far as the maintenance, Robin, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, so for the first year, maybe it's 2, Bob, you remind me, the contractor does take care of the landscaping because like Alejandro said, it's small, right? So the first couple of years we call, or maybe it's only a year in some cases, a landscape establishment. So the contractor takes care of it. So for that period of time, we're pretty well assured that it won't look weedy or any of that. I mean, of course, right after a monsoon storm, we all know they sprout up pretty quick. So there might be a few days here and there, maybe as a week. The other thing is for long term. So we've had cuts ever since the 2008, 2009 timeframe, right, where there wasn't very much money, but just recently, especially in this latest budget plan, we're adding more funding to the landscape maintenance. So over time, this is what we're planning, is to have more maintenance done in the median areas, and that will, if it all goes as per plan, we will not have as many of those problems throughout the city, and that will include this.
Thank you, Robin. The next question is, and by the way, we're taking the questions as they came in, so hopefully we're not too far behind. It looks like we're 10 minutes from when they're asked, so we're answering them. Somebody asked, I live 1 block north of Grant on Highland. What will be my view looking south? I'm pulling up that area. So there's Highland. So here's Grant at Highland. I assume that the person who asked the question lives somewhere up here, block north. The east of Highland, the first row of houses is being acquired for Grant Road. What we are doing is, because we're acquiring the entire parcels, we are moving the part that will be included with Grant Road further back. This blue line, which is the project limits, used to be right behind the sidewalk, which is right here. We moved it back, so we will have an opportunity to do plantings both between the road and the sidewalk and between the sidewalk and the open area. We are also going to do what we did on phase 2, which is if there are mature trees that are in good condition in the existing properties, we will preserve those so that we don't just leave a barren area. So the area behind the blue line, which is right here, I'm highlighting it. What we'll do is we'll stabilize it. We will preserve the good trees. And I think at one point, the approach was to redevelop those parcels. I don't think that's what is being proposed right now. It would be an opportunity for the neighborhoods to work together and make it, a great space. I know Jefferson Park, for instance, out here between Park and Santa Rita, just completed a linear park with, some of their own work to get grants, 407 monies, and other resources. But you can see here, after Grant Road Phase 2 was built, there were a decent number of trees that remained in location. The next question is about bike lanes. What is the proposed width of the bike lanes? Will there be any sort of visual buffer between the vehicular and bike lanes? What we are proposing right now is 6-foot bike lanes with a 3-foot buffer between the bike lanes and traffic lanes. I think I saw so it would be similar to what you see here. A buffer bike lane, 3 feet buffer, 6-foot bike lanes. I know the question comes up often about, why don't we install a raised separation, whether it's in the form of, curbing or flexible posts. The challenge we have here in Grant Road, frankly, is that there are so many driveways that it's very, very difficult, or it's inefficient to provide that. I mean, you can look at here, maybe, how many driveways. There's a driveway every 50, 75 feet. So it makes it challenging to provide those. And if it were flexible post, it would be a maintenance nightmare. So we are trying to provide the best buffer we can. And then the city's also worked on providing parallel facilities for bikes. Seneca and Beverly Boulevard to the south. And those are actually funded through 407. So that's a project that will happen. 407. Then the north is the Copper Flower Bike Boulevard. So those will be a lot lower stress routes as well. Anything to add, Robin or Bob, on bikes?
No, I think you covered it, Alejandro. I think, the point you made about all the driveways, even if it wasn't a maintenance nightmare, it's really just a question of you'd have a post and then a driveway, a post and then a driveway, and that doesn't really provide the buffer in the way that we want to provide a vertical buffer. So.
Okay. The next question is about what can be done to decrease cutting through on Norris to Spring? It's already a problem, and the indirect left ending there will only make it worse. So here's Norris, and Spring is the street to the north right here. So two things. I guess I need to digest it, but by having a median, it will make it more difficult to cut through, I think. People heading east are not going to be able to turn onto Norris to Spring. And again, the other thing is, as we try to make reduce congestion here, that will decrease the motivation to cut through. So I can, if you want to send an additional question, I'd be happy to look specifically at that area. Next item is, realistically speaking, when is construction likely to start on these spaces? And will it start from the east or the west? So first with where will it start? We don't know that yet. So it'd be too early to tell. It will depend on where do utilities relocate first, what properties have been acquired first. So the area where they can work will determine where the start of the project is. When will it start? I think what I've been telling people is that I suspect the construction wouldn't start for about another 5 years. So I would think somewhere in 2026 would be start. If you own a business or some other facility there on Grant Road, there is no immediate need to put up things. I wish I could say more, but I don't know more unless, Robin, if you have additional information, I'm sure I'd love to hear it.
Right. I don't have any better insight than you did, Alejandro. I know that as it currently stands, we don't have it in the 5-year plan enough funding to fund the construction. And so the 2026 target seems fairly realistic. I'd also like to add on the whether we start from east or west. You mentioned the utility companies, which certainly they'll do their relocations mostly before the project starts, but we won't know where the contractor will start until after we have a contractor on board, and that will be when this project is fully designed and everything's acquired and the utilities are out of the way. It'll be some time before we'll know that answer.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Is there funding to build phases 5 and 6? When would construction start? So I think we answered the second part of that question already. Is there funding to build phases 5 and 6? I think no funding has been set aside yet on the transportation improvement plan, which is the 5-year plan. That's why we're saying that. I don't think it'll be less than 5 years. So from that perspective, it hasn't been programmed, but I think both the city and the RTA are committed to finding the funding to build the project. Next, there's a question about streets. The portion of the street south of Grant, let me go there. Portion of the street south of Grant has a big problem with speeders, and it's only gotten worse with the dispensary. Is there any way to add something, anything, right there to discourage non-resident speeders who use it as a sidewalk? Yes, and I'm hoping this will help. Is the city is about to start construction of the bicycle boulevard, or is in construction of the bicycle boulevard Street Avenue. That includes traffic circles, speed humps, and also I think a reduction in the speed limit to 20 miles an hour. So that's the plan going forward for Treat. As I said, the dispensary is in conflict with the project, and it's likely. Yeah, there was, I assume the same person made a comment saying, once the dispensary is gone, people lessen, but it's still a big issue. So again, within months, there should be those traffic calming features that come with the bike boulevard street. Next question is about drainage. There are areas along Grant Road where the water runoff flows south for businesses. So how will you accommodate this without backing up water? Do you know where these areas exist? Have you talked to property owners? So yes, we do a few things to evaluate things. We pull up drainage complaints at the city. City keeps a record of those, so that helps us a little bit. We have talked to property owners, and for instance, I know the Kingfisher owners have talked to us about how much drainage we have heading towards the but we've also done a drainage polling. So exactly where.
Alejandro, can you adjust your microphone again, please?
Yes, Bob.
Okay.
Sorry. Let me back up. So, and I'll get closer to the camera too.
Yes, I think you need to be closer to the laptop. It seems to be better. Thank you.
Let me back up. We gather or we research drainage complaints with the city to see where the problems are near Grant Road. That's one item. Two, we've talked to businesses And I mentioned an example where the people from Kingfisher mentioned to us how much water goes from Forges to Tucson and how it flows. But third, we have done a detailed drainage analysis, and right now it's the initial draft. But that does show the areas of significant ponding, and we know, for instance, those are at Treat, Norris, Country Club, Camilla, Tucson Boulevard, all those areas where there's significant flows. We are looking at finding ways to get as much of that water as we can into the existing storm drain system or into the detention basins. I don't want to overpromise because we can't fix the regional drainage issues north of Grant. I mean, there's some areas that have a ton of water that we're not going to be able to dry out. It would be another, $50 million on itself. But we are committed to, one, making sure we don't make things worse for anybody, and two, trying to take the opportunities we can to improve drainage. So once we have that drainage report published, I'm sure we'll be able to share it. And so that's where we are. We are also trying to make sure that we make Grant Road an all-weather access road, which means that even if you have a 100-year storm, a huge rainfall, you might have water, or you would have water on Grant Road, but it would still be drivable for emergency services. So I hope that helps. And again, in all of these, if you have a follow-up question, you can either put them in the chat or contact us, and we'll be happy to work with you on them. Next item is please acquire some businesses, dilapidated structures, so the two zones will both have green space. Otherwise, it's the lower income neighborhoods only getting hotter. We need park and green space too. So I don't want to reiterate what I already said. We are looking for as many opportunities for green space as we can. If there is a business that we need to acquire for the roadway, we will try to provide plantings where we can. Next question. Will there be less noise from sirens on Grant Road? They are overpowering right now. And I guess I don't know exactly what sirens that is. If it's fire, ambulance, or other emergency services, I'm not sure that that's something that Grant Road will be able to mitigate. As I said, we will do a noise study. And for instance, on phase 2 with the noise study, there were a couple of blocks of properties that were very close to the road that ended up getting noise walls because they met the thresholds for noise walls. Those noise walls are not based on sirens. They're based on sustained noise levels. So if you get a lot of road noise, it would warrant the noise wall. Sirens, unfortunately, do not. And I don't know how to address the issue of sirens on Grant Road. That's, yeah. Next is also about noise. Are there any studies about where the noise will increase? And can you explain more about noise abatement strategy? So absolutely. The city and the county both have and the RTA have a policy for noise where if and I'm going to simplify because there's other conditions, but if a road project results in a property having a noise level higher than 66 decibels, and that's a specific level of noise, that group of properties is eligible for noise walls. We have not done that noise study yet, but it is something we will do. The reason we haven't done it is because to properly model the noise in the corridor, we need to know exactly the alignment of the new road, which is what we're presenting to you right now. So we need to refine that before we do the noise study. The noise is also dependent on the profile of the road, how high or low the road is relative to the adjacent properties. So we still need to finalize the drainage and the profile to come up with that. Once we have those two elements, what happens is somebody goes out there and measures the noise levels at several points along the corridor. And then using that noise level and knowing the amount of traffic that's on Grant Road today and the location where they took the measurements, they can create a model to replicate the noise. So they model the noise and make sure that the model they create matches what they observed in the field. Then they use that model and create a new one for the future that has the higher traffic volumes on Grant Road, that has the new profile and the new alignment for the road. And then they use that new model to predict what the noise levels will be on Grant Road. And that's what determines where the noise walls goes. Again, on phase two, a few properties warranted noise walls, others did not. So, and we actually did a noise study to predict noise. And then after the project was done, the city did another noise study to verify that, you know, the predictions had been correct, the projections. And that study showed that, yes, the projections were all within 1 decibel of the actual noise levels. And so, and the noise study was correct. Next question. Has it been considered to not allow left turns from Mountain onto Grant during any time of day? That's a question we haven't gotten to yet. I think where we are right now is to continue the status quo that prohibits left turns during the peak hours. So that's certainly up for discussion, but to be determined. Unless Robin or Bob, you've heard or said anything else.
No, I think we need more input for a decision on that.
Okay. Next item, will all the bus stops be covered? Yes, all the bus stops will be covered. And in fact, they should look similar to the bus stops that you see here. Well, that's not a good example. Yes, they will be covered. Let me see. I know I have some from phase 2 that are covered. Here, they'd be similar to this. Yes, they will be covered. Please take another look at the Norris to Spring to Campbell issue. I live right at the corner of Spring and Norris. Despite a speed bump, cars bypass the wait at the light and cut through. So I assume that's the westbound. So yes, we will. I guess the short answer is yes, we will. We will take a look at it. I just want to clarify that the concern is traffic heading west, going this way, and then, so if you're still in the meeting, if you can just send us, oops, not there, something that says, yes, that is the issue. I would love to make sure I understand it. But I think it's west to north to right on Campbell. One thing that is will be very different than what's out there today is now there will be a significantly longer right turn lane all the way from Norris to Grant. So traffic trying to turn right will not have to contend with through traffic. It'll be on its own lane, even from the indirect left here, to make that right turn. And again, I think that will make it significantly faster and less desirable. But if I'm misunderstanding, I don't want to give you the wrong information. So please let us know. From the text, can you describe the new bike lanes? So yes, if you are familiar with Grant Road Phase 2, they will be similar to those where you have, from the curb, you will have a 6-foot bike lane, and then you'll have a double stripe buffer between the bike lane and the travel lane. So in Phase 2, that was a 2-foot buffer. On phases 5 and 6, it would be a 3-foot buffer with crosshatch. And again, I would encourage you to watch the video at a later time and see the renderings that we're showing here, because it'd be similar to what I'm showing right now. will there be an elevation change on the new road? If yes, how much? Again, that's not finalized yet, but we are trying to keep any elevation changes to a minimum. If there are any, I expect them to be hopefully a foot or less, because if we do change the elevation of the road too much, we will end up with drainage problems on Grant Road. So we're trying to keep it as close to the existing one as possible. Some of the drainage crossings are going to be, or could possibly be, siphons from one side to the other to keep us from racing the road. And I know that also, if we don't race it, it also helps avoid increased noise. And Robin and Bob, feel free to chime in. I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
I would, but you're doing great, Alejandro.
Okay.
Alejandro, could you explain what a siphon is? I suspect a lot of people don't know what that is.
I wish it was easy to explain, Bob.
I know. That's why I put it on.
Yeah, a siphon is basically a structure where the water, the road wouldn't go up. The water would fall into a drainage structure under the road, and then if there's enough water to where it goes over the road, also the water would sort of bubble up on the other side of the structure downstream of Grant Road and come out. That's during a big storm. After the storm passes, we have a smaller pipe that we can outlet to a detention basin to make sure that we don't have mosquitoes or anything else in that area. That's the best I can do without an exhibit. I promise I will have one next time. But it's basically something that functions, it's not by gravity like a traditional drainage structure where water just flows downhill. It comes in one side, bubbles up the other, and then we drain the bottom of it at the end with another smaller pipe, like a straw, to clean it. There is a question about whether Chevron, and I assume this is about the Chevron station at the northwest corner of Grant and Tucson. So that's this property right here, and it's unfortunately that's one of the properties I don't have a clear answer yet. It looks like there's a possibility to avoid the canopy and the underground tanks where they store the gas. There are some impacts to a couple of the parking spaces, and we need to make sure the driveways can work. So that's one property where, if you are the owner, we would love to talk to you. If you're not, just we're still looking into it and see what can be done. Next question. What lighting will be added, and are there impacts on dark skies and bird migration factored into the design? So we do have street lighting included on Grant Road. It is LED lighting, and it's 3,000 Kelvin. And I say that only in case you're familiar with it, but that's lighting that's less white light. It blends more with the environment. It's better for observatories and dark skies. It creates less light pollution. The other nice thing about LED lights is that they point the light downwards. There's less light spill upwards. So we're using LEDs. And one additional feature that we're committed to doing for this project is in phase 2, we had some concerns about lights from those street lights going back into the residential properties. So wherever we're in a residential area, there will be light shields to keep any light spill from going back into the residential properties. Last thing I think for lighting is in the bus stop areas and in other areas of heavy pedestrian use, there will also be pedestrian scale lighting, which are lower lights. I know it's kind of clumsy for me to go back and forth on these things, but I hope that's not a good example. Either is that one. But again, if you do look at phase 2, there's the pedestrian lights are only like 15 foot tall instead of 30 feet and are focused on the sidewalk area. So I think I have dark skies. I can't address bird life and bird migration with street lights. I apologize. I don't know a lot about that. So I think those are all the questions we had in the chat box for now. We still have 10 minutes and we'll be available in case other questions come up. And I would remind everybody, you can leave comments at this address or get additional info on the website. I am sure this presentation will be posted in the next couple of days. And we will also include those exhibits that I've been referring to back and forth will be posted on the website as well. Erica, are there any announcements you'd like to make or that you'd like us to make?
No, I think you've covered it all. If you guys have additional comments or questions, we're providing a link in the chat box that you can fill out. Also, if you did not sign in, please do so. There's a link at the beginning. We can have Christina post it one more time. That way we can capture your contact information and add you to any distribution that we send out. Nice job, Alejandro.
Thank you, Erica.
Did I see an answer to Alejandro's question about the turn lane in Norris that verified that Alejandro was right when his request?
Yes, you did, Robin. I just published it.
Okay.
Okay, good. So we got the Norris question. It also looks like at least one person understood our explanation of the siphon.
Thank you.
So, and again, we'll stay on as long as needed.
Doesn't look like any additional comments are coming in. This will be posted at the grantroad.info project website as well.
Absolutely. And I apologize for the audio issues.
They got better as it went on.
I guess since we still have time, I will say that I guess, and Bob, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our next step in terms of outreach will be to go back to the task force and share the input we got during the last two in-person meetings and this virtual meeting. And we've got a lot, so we'll share it with the task force and discuss direction moving forward. So if anybody is interested, I would expect that we would move to have a task force meeting over the next few weeks or months. Erica, are you able to capture all the published questions so we can have them, I guess, yeah, handy later to go?
Yes. Yes, we'll be able to download all of the questions and comments that came in from today's meeting and be able to combine them with the questions from the in-person meetings as well.
Perfect.
Just before you leave, if you'll please sign in so we can get your contact information. And I don't see anything else coming in, so I think we are good. Robin, Bob, anything you want to end off with?
Well, I guess I would say just thank you for everyone who turned out tonight, and really great questions, and gave us a lot of food for thought, and hopefully you got information that was helpful to you.
Yeah, we got a lot of good feedback, and we'll have to look and see what some of those answers are. And I'm sure glad everybody showed up today.
All right, thank you all. We'll end tonight's meeting. Have a good night all.
Take care.
Thank you all.